Hi, I'm Irene Samuels and welcome back to another episode of Soul Stirring Astrology, where I give you my textured take on the world of astrology. Well, hello everyone. How are you doing in these lockdown times? I've been away for a little bit because I have just finished retraining as a software engineer and my mind needed to rest. So I took a break alongside all of you as we've all been imposed with this lockdown with COVID-19. So, where are we today? Well, yesterday, the North Node moved into Gemini, which means the South Node is in Sagittarius. So for the next 18.5 months, we really are being presented with the theme of truth. It's very interesting what's going on, interesting times. Now, the North Node has just left Cancer, meaning the South Node was in Capricorn. So actually, have you spent the last 18 months learning how to reparent your inner child, as well as knowing how to self-care, self-nourish and self-nurturance? Because if you've paid attention to what's been going on over the previous 18.5 months, the focus has been about you creating a new foundation so that you're able to walk solidly into this North Node in Gemini. And boy, don't you need it. So with the North Node in Cancer, the whole idea was for you to emerge, that you're able to give to other people freely because you've been truly fulfilled, instead of giving from the place because you lack something, so there's a need for you, so you give in order to receive, which then creates codependency in an emotional way. The foundation that was required as we move into this North Node in Gemini is calling for truth. And whose truth? And we're now living into, or it's been verified in a way, we're living in a post-truth world. COVID-19 and the North Node in Gemini will be, I think, this exploration of the world in a post-truth reality. What does that really mean? So let's look at the South Node in Sagittarius. So here we're looking at karma. And one of the suggestions with the South Node moving through Sagittarius for the next 18.5 months will be around the exploration of karmic justice. The reason being is because Jupiter, as you know, is very interested in truth, you know, the universal truth, whose truth, your individual truth, personal philosophies, the philosophies that govern our lives, both internally and externally. And what we're seeing now is, well, it's South Node. So do you still hold on to old beliefs, old point of views, old ways of being? Whose truth have you bought into? Whose truth have you been living through, living under? That now, with the North Node in Gemini, it's for you to be questioning those truths. And we're looking at karmic justice. Why do I say that? Well, we look at COVID-19, the whole world has gone into lockdown. And what has this brought about? Well, the Earth, Mother Earth, was able to breathe again. We can all see the positive impact of us being in lockdown, but that's actually allowing our Earth, planet Earth, to breathe again, for the waters to run clean, for the sky to be blue. We're seeing the natural law being played out, and that's very much about the South Node in Sagittarius, because Jupiter rules natural laws. What's really interesting, again, is most recently, according to Google, that one of the highest search terms is prayer, which suggests that actually people have lost faith, lost hope, lost trust in the kind of structures that govern us, you know, the government and the church. If we think about how religion and trust in the government has been diminishing for quite some time, so a lacuna has opened up. And what has stepped into that lacuna it could be argued that You know, we've been living through, particularly the last 20 years, under a sort of common lowest denominator. What do I mean by this? Well, for the last 20 years at least, we've had reality TV, you know, from Big Brother through to Love Island and every variation in between, which has meant that on some level, as a mass, where our ideas, our thinking capacity has been dumbed down. It's about diverting attention away from, quotes, the realities of the world. So if you've been focusing on Love Island, for example, and not paying attention to, have you nurtured yourself? Have you nourished yourself? Have you parented your inner child? Because COVID-19 and the North Node in Gemini is really calling on quite a few things. The government is seen as the kind of constitutional parent. There's been a schism, really, with Saturn conjunct Pluto, which was exact on January the 12th, but is very much in resonation even to today and for the rest of the year, particularly when Saturn starts to retrograde back into Capricorn. So there's been a schism in terms of the government. Who trusts governments? You know, do you trust governments? That's a question that's been asked. Has the government lost its power? Because it's alongside Pluto, and Pluto is about the reclamation of power, personal power, but as well as collective power. So this backdrop to the North Node in Gemini is being seen through the prism of power. Who has power? Now, if we think about how we live into this North Node in Gemini, think about it from the point of view as, I'm going to use a sort of farming metaphor. You know, in life, karmically, we plant seeds, and the seeds are every thought, every action, our behaviour, good, bad, or indifferent. And it goes into, you know, we're seeding every step of the way. We seed, we seed, we seed. We plant, we allow the seeds to grow. And when it's time for harvest, will your harvest be pleasurable or will it be painful? And so with this South Node in Sagittarius, it's calling on all of us to be thinking about what are the karmic seeds that we are planting. We're also being shown with the North Node in Gemini that these seeds that we plant actually can show where there's an inner schism, where we've got these dichotomies. We might believe in the old ways of doing things, or we might have lived through very comfortably or unquestioningly about the laws that have shaped our world. But actually COVID-19 and its existence or non-existence, depending on who you believe, but also your own discernment. We're looking at Gemini. Although Gemini is the lighter side of Mercury, Mercury equally rules Virgo. So it is about discernment of the facts. Whose truth are you living into? Are you now activating your own personal truth? What do you actually believe about COVID-19? North Node in Gemini is really calling on all of us to be exchanging ideas about it, because the tried and tested, you've got media corporations, you've got governments that push out a particular view. But we're seeing the kind of hypocrisy in some of the views. Take today, for example, in the UK. The chief scientific advisor to Boris Johnson's government, the UK British government, is Neil Ferguson. Well, he was the person who was advocating for everybody in the UK, and it's been mirrored around the world that we should go into lockdown because it's a way in which to prevent the spread of coronavirus, and yet he has just resigned because he breached his own rules that have been imposed on everybody by meeting up with his married lover in his home. And so here we're seeing this collision, we're actually seeing this schism between Saturn and Pluto. We've got the Saturnian point of view that we need to be operating in a particular way, and then those who are imposing it are breaking it in a variety of different ways. So with the North Node in Gemini, we're called upon the examination of truth. Alternative points of views and alternative points of views certainly have been put forward. If you think about the recent interviews with David Icke and Brian Rose on London Real, I've seen 2 of them. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Give me the facts and let me discern, and I can draw my own conclusions. But what I will say, together with David Icke and Dr. Buttar, you know, they put forward very cogent, very compelling facts, information, and opportunities that invite all of us to draw our own conclusions and draw on the conclusions based from a loving perspective, and hence why the importance of all of us having done our work in the North Node in Cancer, you know, the healing, the nourishment, so we're approaching our lives, but also collectively from a place of love. That's why, you know, waving goodbye to the Capricorn and Cancer brings us into this world of the North Node in Gemini. Now, if we think about Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury, from a mythological point of view, is named Hermes, and Hermes was the messenger between the gods and everyday lay people. So here again, Hermes, i.e. Mercury, was bringing the wisdom and the knowledge from the gods, i.e. the South Node in Sagittarius, down to everyday people, and it's through us we're exchanging ideas. What did you think? What did you think about this? Did you hear about that? Let me think about that for a moment. What does that actually mean? So it's a time whereby we're being called upon to rise up into having these alternative conversations, questioning your own perspective. Is it time for your new world order to show itself? You know, Saturn conjunct Pluto, very much about new world orders, but also the context of the beginning of this North Node in Gemini is surrounded by the full moon in Scorpio, which takes place on May the 7th, so in a couple of days' time. So here we have the sun in Taurus, and the moon in Scorpio. So sun in Taurus is very comfortable with the tried and tested. You know, the government tells us to do X, and those who follow that do what the government says, or do, you know, follows the kind of rules because it brings a sense of security. However, there's an opposition because we've got the full moon in Scorpio, and Scorpio is about what are the depth of your feelings. You know, it's questioning. Who do you trust? Why do you trust? Where's the evidence? And so we've got this full moon in Scorpio that's calling on us to, you know, re-evaluate what it is that we values, because we're dealing with Taurus. And you need to do that in quite a deep exploratory way, and then bring it forward into this sense of this North Node in Gemini. Who are you? What do you actually think? What are your own independent thoughts? And we're looking at this sense of, once you have a sense of those, sharing them, examining them with other people. Don't forget, while this COVID-19 has kicked off in the era of Neptune. Neptune's very, very strong at the moment. Neptune's at home, Neptune's at 20 degrees. And so here again, we've got this plutonic energy. Neptune is about the division of barriers. And so instead of, you know, who's talking about Brexit now? Nobody's talking about Brexit, because Brexit was about separation. COVID-19 has shown the whole world that here we are as one, experiencing this at exactly the same time. There is no separation. So this 20 degrees of Neptune in Pisces is calling again for transformation. We're not individuals, we are a collective. And as a collective of people, what are our views, what are our thoughts on what is happening in our world? Very transformative times, very, very transformative times. And where do you stand within all of that? Because in 18.5 months' time, a question or something for you to think about. I mean, it's a quote by Anne Moreau Lindbergh. And what she said is this, is that we all had the experience, But did we gather the actual meaning? Did we grasp the meaning of what's actually happening with this advent of COVID-19? You know, what is going to be the other bookend for this North Node in Gemini? It started in the midst of COVID-19, so that's one end. What are you going to think? Who are you going to be? What will be your reflections upon the 18 and a half months that have preceded this point? You know, did you actually gather the meaning of what is going on? How have you interpreted the meaning? How have you extracted the meaning? Given what I said earlier, Google, according to Google, one of the trending words is prayer. What are you actually praying for? What actions are you actually taking? What intelligence are you actually bringing to this situation? If you think about the book and the book title of Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, the North Node in Gemini is very much this call for each and every one of us to go on the man's search for meaning and the woman's search for meaning and the collective search for meaning, which takes us beyond the status quo of the government says X, Y, and Z. In relation, having that as a backdrop, what do you think? And that's what this North Node in Gemini is all about. So that's it, beautiful people. North Node in Gemini, you know, when you plant your seeds, what are your seeds of karma? Will they be really delicious, happy, pleasurable ones? Or will they be painful ones because you haven't woken up to the crisis that we are all experiencing, and each and every one of us is a solution to this crisis? And coming from we've just come through the North Node in Cancer, what are the loving intentions that we're bringing? You know, what's the kind of emotional, what's the emotional nuance that each and every one of us can bring to this situation that can collectively we can heal together? Because with Neptune at 20 degrees in the sign that he rules, which is Pisces, this is about the collective transformative experience. So that's it, beautiful people. Really miss sharing all of this with you, but I'm back, as I said, because I've now finished studying. So I would love to hear what you have to say. What's been some of your experiences through this COVID-19 experience, this collective experience? Would love to connect with you. Put your comments in the comment box below. Also, if there's anything in particular that you would like me to be speaking about, you know, I'm literally just canvassing your views in terms of the types of episodes you want me to put out in the future. It will all be around astrology, but I do other things as well. So yes, I want to reconnect. Let's continue jamming, let's continue growing, let's continue sharing as we rise up together, yeah, collectively, collaboratively, instinctively, reflectively. Let's do this together. So take care, stay well, and you will see me very soon, actually, on the next episode. Bye.